Ferrari is not being questioned because Leclerc crashed. Ferrari is being questioned because Leclerc says the car refused to stop. At Monaco, the most dangerous place in Formula One to lose braking confidence, Charles Leclerc pressed the pedal. The rear brakes did not respond properly, and his Ferrari went straight into the barriers at his home Grand Prix. Then came the sentence that shook Maranello. He was not taking the blame, because this was not a random mistake. Ferrari already knew the brake problem had been haunting the SF26 since Canada. A fix existed. The team had pace. Hamilton was close enough to fight Kimi Antonelli for the win, until a 5-second pit lane penalty destroyed Ferrari's best chance. One Ferrari missed victory through execution. The other crashed through a brake failure Leclerc called undrivable. And now the pressure is exploding because this is bigger than Monaco. If Ferrari cannot prove those brakes are safe, if Leclerc cannot trust the car, and if Hamilton keeps losing wins through tiny errors, then Ferrari is not just chasing Mercedes. Ferrari is fighting itself. Subscribe to the channel. Monaco is the one circuit where a brake problem does not feel like a weakness. It feels like a threat, because everywhere else, a driver can sometimes survive uncertainty. There might be a runoff area. There might be gravel. There might be a strip of asphalt beyond the corner where a mistake becomes a lost lap instead of a destroyed race. But Monaco is different. At Monaco, the wall is always close enough to answer immediately. That is why Ferrari's weekend became dangerous before Charles Leclerc ever hit the barrier. The warning was already there. Leclerc had been talking about the brakes before Monaco. This was not a sudden complaint invented after a crash. It had followed him from Canada, where he admitted he was struggling with confidence under braking, and that he had already made more mistakes and lockups because the car was not giving him the feeling he needed. That phrase matters. Confidence under braking. It sounds simple, but for a Formula One driver, it is everything. Braking is not just slowing down. It is how a driver attacks. It is how he creates lap time. It is how he commits later than the car beside him. It is how he turns bravery into position. If a driver trusts the brakes, he can go deep. If he doubts them, every corner begins with fear. And Leclerc was heading into Monaco with doubt already inside the cockpit. That is the part Ferrari could not afford, because the SF26 was not slow. That actually made the problem more painful. A slow car gives a team a clear explanation. You are not fast enough. You need upgrades. You need more downforce. You need more efficiency. The disappointment is obvious. But a fast car with a dangerous weakness is different. It gives you hope. It lets you believe. It puts the win close enough to touch. Then it asks whether you trust the one system that must never fail. Ferrari had pace from the first sessions. Leclerc topped the opening practice. Hamilton led the second. On the timing screens, Ferrari looked alive. The red cars were not just circulating. They were threatening. But beneath the speed, the same problem remained. Leclerc did not fully trust the brakes. And at Monaco, that is not a minor issue. It is the foundation of the entire weekend. Every corner demands precision. Every braking point is surrounded by punishment. Every lockup can become a headline. Every moment of hesitation costs time that cannot easily be recovered. Leclerc wanted a step forward before qualifying. He needed one, because qualifying in Monaco is not just another session. It is almost a race by itself. Start at the front, and the streets can protect you. Start too far back, and the streets become a prison. That is why Ferrari's situation was so tense. On one side of the garage, Hamilton had the experience and rhythm to make Monaco a winning opportunity. On the other, Leclerc had the speed and the home emotion, but he was fighting a car that did not give him complete confidence in the braking zones. That is a dangerous split, because a team trying to beat Mercedes needs both sides working perfectly. No doubts, no mistakes, no unresolved problems. But Ferrari arrived with an unresolved problem in the most sensitive area of the car. The team had already been investigating the issue. Brake-by-wire mapping, cooling, rear brake behavior, all the technical details that decide whether the car slows in a clean, predictable way. In plain language, Ferrari was trying to solve a trust problem. The rear brakes were not always giving Leclerc the support he expected. And when the rear brakes do not behave properly, the whole balance of the car can shift forward. The front becomes overloaded. The car feels less stable. The driver loses the clean response he needs at the exact moment he is most exposed. At a normal circuit, that is serious. At Monaco, it is terrifying. Ferrari did have a solution prepared. That detail makes the story more complicated. A fix existed, but Monaco is not a place where drivers love unknowns. A new solution can be promising but unfamiliar. A familiar setup can feel safer, even if it carries risk, because at least the driver knows what he is dealing with. Leclerc chose the familiar configuration, and in the moment, you can understand why. He knows Monaco better than almost anyone. He knows how delicate the confidence window is there. He knows that one unexpected feeling from the car can ruin an entire lap, an entire session, an entire race. So he chose what he knew. But that is the cruelty of Formula One. Sometimes the thing you know is the thing that hurts you. Qualifying then turned Ferrari's tension into reality. Antonelli put Mercedes on pole. Verstappen took second. Hamilton qualified third. Leclerc ended up fourth. For Hamilton, third still kept the race alive. He could pressure Antonelli. He could wait for strategy. He could use experience and patience. At Monaco, third is not ideal, but is still close enough to matter. For Leclerc, fourth was painful, because fourth in Monaco can feel much worse than fourth anywhere else. It means you need help. You need a safety car. You need a red flag. You need the race to become messy enough to create an opening. And Leclerc had already been carrying the one problem no driver wants to carry into a messy Monaco race: uncertain brakes. That is where the weekend's first act really ends. Not with the crash. Not with Hamilton's penalty. Not with Leclerc's post-race anger. But with Ferrari knowing that the car was fast enough to fight, yet fragile enough to betray them. That is the tension. Ferrari did not arrive in Monaco hopeless. They arrived with opportunity. And opportunity is what makes failure hurt more. Because when a team has no chance, a bad result is just disappointment. When a team has a real chance, a bad result becomes a question of responsibility. Who lost it? The driver? The car? The engineers? The pit wall? The decision not to use the fix? The execution under pressure? Ferrari went into Sunday carrying all of those questions before the race had even begun. Hamilton was close enough to dream of victory. Leclerc was close enough to dream of redemption. But the brakes were already under suspicion. And at Monaco, suspicion is enough to change everything. When the race began, Ferrari still had a chance. That is what makes Monaco hurt so much. This was not a weekend where the red cars were invisible. This was not a race where Mercedes disappeared and Ferrari had nothing to say. Hamilton was in position. Leclerc was still close enough to benefit if the race turned chaotic. And Monaco, more than almost any circuit in the world, has a way of turning calm into panic without warning. Antonelli controlled the start from pole, and immediately, Ferrari had a problem. Not a disaster. A problem. Because when Antonelli leads cleanly, the race begins to move around him. He can protect the tires. He can control the pace. He can force everyone behind to make the first risky decision. Hamilton understood that. He did not need to attack wildly. He did not need to throw the Ferrari at an impossible gap. Monaco rewards patience, not desperation. The smart race was to stay close, keep pressure alive, and wait for the moment when Mercedes could be forced into a decision. That moment almost came. The race began to fracture. Safety cars arrived. Strategy windows opened. The rhythm was broken. And every time Monaco resets itself, the leader has to win the race all over again. That gave Hamilton a route back toward victory. He was close enough to believe. Ferrari was close enough to believe. But belief is dangerous when execution is not perfect. Then came the penalty. Hamilton's Ferrari exceeded the pit lane speed limit, and the FIA handed him a 5-second time penalty. 5 seconds sounds small. At Monaco, it is not small. At Monaco, 5 seconds can be the difference between attacking for the win and watching the win move just out of reach. It changes how the leader feels. It changes how the chasing driver manages the gap. It turns pressure into mathematics. Hamilton could still finish second. He could still take strong points. He could still prove that his pace in Ferrari red was real. But the penalty damaged the one thing he needed most: threat. Without that clean threat, Antonelli had more breathing room. Mercedes had more control. Ferrari's best chance to turn chaos into a victory slipped away through a detail that should never have happened. That is why this mistake was so painful. It was not a lack of talent. It was not a lack of speed. It was not Hamilton failing to understand Monaco. It was Ferrari losing margin through execution at the exact circuit where margins are almost impossible to recover. And while Hamilton's victory chance was being wounded by a penalty, Leclerc's race was moving towards something far more serious. Because his problem was not time. It was trust. Lap after lap, the brake issue that had haunted the weekend was still sitting inside the story. Leclerc had already said he lacked confidence under braking. Ferrari already knew the problem had followed him from Canada. The team already had a solution prepared, even if the familiar configuration had been chosen for Monaco. And now, the risk was no longer theoretical. Late in the race, after the interruptions had created another tense phase, Leclerc approached the corner. He pressed the brake, and the Ferrari did not slow down properly. That is the moment every racing driver fears. Not because it is dramatic, because it is helpless. There is no time to argue with the car. No time to ask the engineers what failed. No time to separate electrical mapping from rear brake temperature, brake-by-wire behavior, or mechanical force. The corner is already there. The wall is already there. The speed is still there. And the car is not giving you control. Leclerc went straight into the barriers. At his home Grand Prix. Again. But this time, the story did not sound like a driver mistake. At first, the attention moved toward the track surface. Monaco had already seen concerns around damaged tarmac, and it was easy to wonder whether the road itself had contributed to a crash. Leclerc shut that down. He said the asphalt was not the problem. He said the data confirmed it was the brakes. That sentence changed everything. Because once the data points to the brakes, Ferrari can no longer hide behind Monaco chaos. It becomes a technical question, a safety question, a trust question. Why did the car fail to slow down? Why had the problem already appeared before? Why was a known brake concern still present in the race? And why did the team arrive at Sunday with a risk that ended in the barriers? Leclerc's reaction made the tension explode. He said he is normally the first to admit when he makes mistakes. That matters because it is true to his public reputation. Leclerc has taken blame before. He has been brutally honest before. He has carried the weight of mistakes in front of the cameras. But this time he refused. He said the brake issues were unacceptable. He said the rear brakes did not work. He said it was impossible to have control. And then he made the statement that Ferrari will not be able to escape easily. He was not taking the blame. That was not just anger. That was a line being drawn. A driver saying this was not me. A driver saying the car failed me. A driver saying the problem was known, the risk was real, and the crash was not something he was willing to carry alone. For Ferrari, that is dangerous. Because driver frustration can be handled privately when it stays inside the garage. But when a driver says it publicly, especially after crashing out of his home Grand Prix, the entire paddock listens.